A lot of people struggle to find the good in their life, and they feel like their whole life is just shit, and they really just don't enjoy their life, and they can't see the good in things. Obviously, just being pessimistic and being optimistic is just the way to go. There's a lot of reasons behind it, but to start off, there's an experiment done by a guy named Martin Seligman, and he did an experiment on, I think it was on dogs. And what he did was he gave them both shock. He gave two groups of dogs shocks. The first group was easily able to avoid the shock, and the second group, it was like impossible to dodge the shocks. So over time, this went on, and they got used to it. Both sides got used to it. The ones who were able to learn how to avoid it, learned how to avoid it. And then the ones who couldn't, they just balled up and took it. So then he got the same groups, put them together, and he gave them both easily avoidable shocks. And the first group of dogs were able to easily avoid it, obviously. And then interestingly, the second group that had the unavoidable shocks, they didn't even try to. They just balled up and again took the shocks and just let it happen. So what happened was they just learned helplessness. They learned how to be helpless. They didn't even attempt to try to figure it out whenever it was easily avoidable. And later they did these experiments again, but they did it on different groups of animals, and they did it on humans too. And the thing is, with the humans, whenever the group that had the unavoidable shocks had the chance to avoid it, some of them just gave in. They learned the helplessness. But the thing with humans was not all of them learned how to be helpless. Some of them learned optimism. And the thing was, they learned how to avoid the avoidable shocks once they tried. So Seligman wanted to learn more about them and learn about the learned optimism. And the thing with the learned helplessness, it's just a one-way ticket to depression. You're not even attempting to change things in your life. If you think you have a bad situation in your life and you just accept it, then of course your life's going to be shit. You're not even trying to look for the good in things. You're being pessimistic. You've learned how to be helpless. Like, you can't help yourself because whatever's been beating you up in life, you just curled up in a ball like the dogs did, and you're just taking it. You get up your power in the world and your ability to do things and change things, and it's going to lead you to a place where we don't want to go. So you got to learn optimism. And the way to learn optimism is with the 3 Ps. And this sounds like a fucking school lecture now because I'm giving you like fucking acronyms and shit. But the 3 Ps are permanence, pervasiveness, and personalization. What permanence is realizing if something is temporary or enduring. So the optimist would be thinking if something challenging happens in their life, they'd be thinking, bring me on, I got this, I'm gonna make it through one way or another, I'm gonna make it through this. And then the pessimist thinks, oh man, another problem. Is life always gonna be this terrible? And they're gonna be just fucking drilling their mental just horribly. They're gonna have a horrible mindset, and they're gonna be depressed, obviously, because they think it's just another day in the life just being fucking shit out of luck. And interestingly, when things are flipped and it's a good situation, the optimist thinks it's another day in the life. He thinks it's something that always happens to him. But the pessimist will think that it's something fleeting, it's something that's not going to last, it's temporary. So they think that the average day is going to be bad, while the optimist thinks that the average day is going to be good. And that's the whole point of permanence. You have either the mindset that every day is going to be good, or the mindset that everything's bad, and that the bad things are going to stay, or the good things are going to stay. It's one or the other, really. And that's super important. Just try to have that optimistic viewpoint on the world. Whenever the good things happen, things gonna stay. Think it's meant to happen for you. Rather than whenever the bad things happen, you don't think it's like, oh, it's another day in the life being fucking shit. You know what I mean? You gotta see the good and expect the bad to pass and expect the good to stay. Now, pervasiveness is basically whether the life situation that you're in is gonna pervade. Pervasiveness, pervade. Whether it's gonna pervade in all aspects of your life or just the one life situation that you're in right now. The optimist is able to isolate this problem into one category of their life. So let's say you're having problems at work. The optimist would be like, okay, it's just a work thing. It's not going to affect the rest of my life. But what the pessimist is going to be thinking, their whole life's fucked. Basically, they're gonna be thinking that one little situation in their life in that one category affects their whole life. So you guys think about it in terms of categories rather than just as a whole. The optimist doesn't make it pervasive like the pessimist does. But again, on the flip side, whenever it's a good situation happening in their life, the optimist sees that one thing as a bonus in their whole life. Their whole life's better. And they think they're the shit, basically. But the pessimist will see that good thing in this one category. So they got promoted in life, or promoted in their job. The optimist would see that as a bonus in their whole life. But the pessimist would see that as just that one area is a good thing in their life, but the rest of their life is still shit. So they go hand in hand. The optimist sees the good side of the world and thinks that's their whole life. And then the opposite, the pessimist sees all the bad things in the world and thinks that's their whole life, rather than splitting them up into one thing. And then personalization is a little weird. It is basically whether or not we take personal responsibility for what's happening. So the optimist, if something bad's happening, they'll think about the environmental factors as well. Like, oh, this could have caused this to happen rather than just me. But the pessimist will take it all on themselves. They'll be like, oh, this is basically, they'll take it all personally, think it's their fault, think that it's happened for a reason because it's them. But again, the opposite happens with the good stuff. The pessimists think they must have gotten lucky, and the optimists think they're the shit. Now, the whole reason I'm talking about this is because if you aren't satisfied with your life and you're taking things in a pessimistic way, you're seeing all the negative sides, not taking into account the positives, you're obviously not going to be living a happy life. You're going to be depressed, and you're going to learn helplessness because you're not going to want to fight back. You're going to just ball up like the dogs again at the beginning. You're going to just ball up and then take the shocks. You got to see the good things and focus more on those than the bad things, because that's going to make just your mental health better, your life more enjoyable. All around you should be living a better life. Whenever you're learning optimism, because it's not something that's just like a personality trait. You're not just born being an optimist or a pessimist. It's things that happens in your life and what you focus on. Whenever you tend to focus on one thing, you'll see it more. So if you focus more on the good, you're going to see the good more often. If you focus more on the bad, you're going to see the bad more often. So if you think the world's a terrible place, you're only going to see the terrible things that are happening. If you take the world as a whole, because if you don't know what duality is like, basically think like the yin yang symbol or whatever. So there's going to be good, there's going to be bad. So there's like an even amount of both. So if you're thinking about the world and you think about all the starving children, like the people who can barely live, and then you think about people who are in a good situation like us who have like a home to living with internet, they can watch these videos. If you think more about the bad situation, people who are homeless and everything, obviously you're going to have a negative outlook on the world. If you think about millionaires, and if say you are a millionaire and somebody says to you, oh, you have so much money but you're not feeding the homeless, say, okay, there's going to be people who are homeless no matter what. I could give this guy $100,000, but there's going to be other homeless people who are still homeless. Like, you can't change that completely. There's going to be good, there's going to be bad. And then doing that guy will lose money too. You get what I'm saying? It's going to be good, there's going to be bad. That's a weird example. But just try to focus on the good, and it's going to make your overall life better. Because if you, again, back to the, not permanence, pervasiveness. If you had pervasiveness, and you take the bad things that happen and put it in one category, instead of letting it involve your whole life, think about how much better your day-to-day would be. Think about how much happier you'd be. Think about just how much better your life would be. Because instead of, let's say something terrible happens to you this morning, and instead of making it a bad day, you think that one thing is bad. Now, if you're the pessimist, and you let that affect your whole day is just going to be shit. And it's like a snowball effect. So you got to have this optimistic outlook and start taking charge of life in that way. Because then good things start happening to you more often. You'll start noticing the smaller things, and it'll improve mental health, improve you as a person. And in doing that, your life will improve in so many areas. Because let's say you're a businessman and one small thing goes wrong. If you let that take over, your mentality's fucked in, and it'll probably affect the business. But if you take that one small thing and you let it pass, you know it's not permanent. With permanence, you know it's going to be temporary, and you keep pushing. Eventually, keep pushing, you'll get somewhere. So don't let the negative shit in your life affect you. Try to have an optimistic outlook no matter what it is. Maybe you've been going to the gym for a while and not seeing a lot of progress. Just keep pushing. Whatever it is, whatever your circumstance is, just in general, have an optimistic outlook on life. But this whole video, if you're into this kind of content, please subscribe. I really appreciate it. I make videos like this, self-improvement type stuff, mental health, physical health, things along that line. And if you're interested in coaching, I have a coaching link in the description. Click that, we'll have a quick sales call, see if you're interested. Besides that, if you got any goals, make that shit happen. See you in the next one.